Hey, good morning, everybody. I know it's been quite a bit of time since I've had the ability to put out a video. I've been working quite a bit, as you can see where my where I'm currently at in the portfolio. I did want to put out a little bit of brief information. So, in terms of the month, this was actually a month, probably I think this was actually the first month where I was actually down for the month. For the month, we took in $454.75 in dividends. Over, like I've said before, we are working on a dividend portfolio. The goal is to achieve a minimum, excuse me, the minimum of $500 a month in terms of dividends every single month. And so, just looking at where we're at for the coming month, as you can see, we're at 460 for the month of July. Not exactly, haven't met my goal yet, but I'm on my way there. So I've got a couple of thousand more dollars that I do want to allocate. I've got a couple of different financial goals for the year. One was, of course, getting a minimum of 500 a month in dividends and recurring dividends. Two was working on my secondary portfolio where I'm actually using options. So I'm holding positions a little bit more on the tech side or a little bit more risk oriented. And I've been selling a lot of covered calls and basically using all of that money to then buy back or put in bids for shares on stocks. And of course, as those stocks pull back, my bids get swept up. And then once I have 100 shares, I start selling covered calls. And so I've been growing my account, and I will show that in a moment. I just wanted to apologize. I've been busy with work. Two, I had a rather unexpected and serious death with the loss of my mother. She had passed away last week, very unexpectedly. It was very devastating to find out. And so I'm basically dealing with that between that. And I do have another YouTube channel and trying to keep up with a lot of that. I do run a small business. And of course, I do work as a nurse. And of course, basically dealing with all the arrangements to basically lay my mother to rest. But with that said, as devastating as it is, life moves on, and I have to make preparations for the family that I may one day have once I have set up where I want to be financially speaking, in terms of having my own, having a much more lucrative business, having a little bit more cash flow in terms of recurring passive income, both from my dividend portfolio as well as the portfolio that I will show moving forward. Like I've said previously, overwhelmingly, this is a dividend. Just about everything in this account pays dividends. Most of my allocations recently have typically been to stocks like Cameco, primarily for investing in the future of uranium, where recurring energy. China has basically been doing this. I covered this in a previous video. China has been working on utilizing nuclear power, and so has America, as well as putting money into stocks like Redfin, Norwegian. I do believe that despite the narrative, we might see more of an opening during the months where typically cruise lines do better, which is more like in the fall into the winter out in Miami. Regardless of what the narrative might be, this is, of course, the route that I am going in terms of investing. I do like Norwegian better than CCL. CCL has been offering more shares, and I really don't like when companies dilute shareholder value. The other company, of course, that I have been putting money into is VIR, which is a biotech that is working on, COVID related medications in terms of shortening length of stay in hospitals, as well as reducing the risk of death. And of course, Microsoft, I wanted to put in a position with Microsoft, and that's basically what I have been holding. In terms of my tech, I did sell a little bit and made some changes, of course, adding into Neo. I had swapped out of Chegg, as I hold Chegg in my Robinhood account. My Robinhood account is overwhelmingly designed primarily towards growth, and I added in a little bit of Roblex as I sold out of Chegg and bought a little bit of Roblex on the dip. And so this is just basically like my somewhat growth. I kind of just, which is why it's called the risk portion of my portfolio. Previously, we talked quite a bit about oil. Oil will continue to move higher into the summer months. And so we will see stocks like, for example, ExxonMobil continue to move higher over the next few months. Especially, there was a recent fire. If you haven't noted, there was an oil refinery that exploded. I believe it was off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. You can easily look it up on YouTube. It was a huge fire underwater. And so that, of course, may play into the narrative. Recently, I believe oil hit 70. Let's look here on TradingView. Oil hit, I believe, 76 or 75, 76 a barrel, that you can see right here. And it will continue to trade higher moving forward, in my opinion. Eventually, if the narrative is inflation, stocks like, for example, CCJ may do well. It is currently holding above $18. Again, it is a mineral company, which is why I am still holding on to Rio and will continue to add to these. This is basically a bit more of a long-term play. Rio, of course, pays a better dividend than Chemical, but Chemical I'm holding primarily for the play on uranium and the play on sustainable energy through nuclear power. That is basically why I started getting into it. 18, if you can look at the chart, looking a little bit more on the broad view, as you can see, all the way back from 2012, where it finally breached $18, and then we saw the sell-off, and now we've breached again to the upside. So we could see Chemical trade higher, which is why I am currently still holding it, and that is not for the dividends, primarily for the short-term growth plays. Rio, of course, is a long-term play, pays a solid dividend, which is why I will be holding on to it again, because the purpose of this portfolio is cash flow. So I'm trying to be as well diverse as possible in case we do see a broad market pullback, or if we see more of a sector related pullbacks, if tech starts to pull back, if the narrative of higher interest rates moving forward, that will hit primarily tech stocks much harder than, let's say, like value plays for, typically most dividend stocks like MO, Walgreens, etc. Typically a lot of real estate, which I will be adding much more probably over the next couple of months. I will add probably, I want to comfortably say, about 10 to 15,000 and a bit more into real estate, as I do believe moving forward with the whole narrative of Americans being more renters. So that means bigger dividend payments moving forward for many REITs. And so that's basically what I've been paying attention to, the direction that the Fed is going, paying attention to interest rates, listening to what's being said, and then making adjustments moving forward. The other thing that I did want to talk about is, if you Google Chips for America, Chips for America is a bill that was pushed back in June of 2019, and other countries are investing in America basically for chip manufacturing in terms of semiconductors. Now, it could be an AMD. I have chosen Intel because I've basically been right. I've bought Intel previously. I bought Intel on the lows when it had that huge 10% gap down into the 40s, and I rode it back up into the 50s and sold out of it. Currently, I am adding to it into my Webull account. And my Webull account, as I had said before, is primarily for holding positions that I'm going to basically write calls on. And so some of those positions are a little bit more stable than others. And some of them have a higher premiums in terms of selling calls. And so I'm currently, you can see what I'm holding here, right? I'm still holding on to Palantir. As you can see where my covered positions are right here. Let me just see if I can move this over so I don't have to hold on to it. Go ahead and move this over here. And then I'll just move this right here. Let's move this over so I can put it on the screen. And hopefully that doesn't look terrible, which it does. It does look terrible. Let me make this smaller real quick. Okay, so you can see my positions right here, holding on to Palantir. Had a huge run up, and as soon as it reached up into the upper 28s, it was hitting like 27s, 2650s, and so I sold 28 because I know that's where the area of resistance is, so I can collect the premium. Could have sold the stock, but I'm actually looking to hold this position long term, and so whenever it comes to a high where there's an area of resistance, I sell the call. Now, sometimes I sell the calls a little bit earlier than others, and I will miss out on a little bit more premium. And so I'm basically teaching myself as I go. Still holding on to Viacom. I will get called on Viacom. Viacom had that huge move to the upside, and so I believe this particular call ends on the 2nd. So this one already, I will lose out on this one. So I took $87 on it, and I've been holding this. So I've actually sold quite a few calls already as I've been holding it for quite some time. And so eventually I'm getting cashed out at 41, but I've already taken $87 in. And so it basically gives me a profit of 58 just for this particular call. I've already written, I believe, at least 2 or 3 other calls on Viacom, and I usually will just write it for the 1 week. And so basically you can write the call for the month and take in a bigger premium, but of course over a longer duration, or you can gamble a little bit more and take in the money calls if you think the stock is going to pull back. Like for example with Palantir, I sold those 28s as it was getting higher and higher, reaching for 30s, and of course the stock could have traded higher, but it had a huge pullback on the news of Cathie Woods selling some Palantir. And so depending upon how much money you want to make, depending upon your predictions, you'll be either blessed or you'll basically have your shares exercised, and then you'll have to either wait for a pullback and buy back or completely go in a different direction. Very similar with CGC. CGC came all the way back up into above 2550s, and so I sold 3 calls, taking in almost $300 and something in premium. And of course I then take that extra $300 that I've got, and as you can see, I'm starting to take positions in these different stocks. I will be writing calls. I have quite a few orders, so a lot of my orders are just out. Like for example, if I go here to, let's go to Redfin, right? And so if I can move this over, and so usually what will happen is the orders, where you'll see them right here, where I'll put orders here at different prices, and I'll have, let's say for example, like 2 shares, 3 shares, 4 shares at like a few dollars below where I know where the supports are, in case I do see a pullback, as I'm not typically going to buy at the market. I want to buy as low as possible, so that will just require time waiting for a mini correction. Now of course that might not happen, and then I'll have to pay up for it, but in the market that we're in, we're more than likely going to see a pullback. And so basically on all of these positions right here, Kraft, Plug, Norwegian, CCL, I might just sell out of it just because I'll wait for a little bit of a run up and then just get out of this and then redistribute that money here. And of course Intel, primarily these are very good stocks that have good premiums. And so looking at my portfolio, if I go to my account, you can see just about for the year, over a year, I've taken in quite a bit of money. And so the goal is to move this portfolio, obviously, to keep accumulating shares so that I can write calls, so that every week, maybe instead of what I'm currently taking in is several hundred, maybe I'll be taking in several thousands of dollars in premium. And of course, as I become a little bit better at it, of course, that adds basically another layer of income. So I'd have dividend incomes, and then I would have premium incomes coming in from writing covered calls for the month. I'm doing okay. Moving forward, I believe maxed out. I think I'm up. Yeah, we had quite a bit of a pullback, so we lost a little bit there, but I'm not very worried. Overwhelmingly, it's not that big of an account. And there was a huge learning process. As you can see, at one point when I first started this, teaching myself, I was down 26. I think that was the most. I think at most I was down 27, almost 2,800. So over the course of the year, I had really a nice big comeback, and was able to, on this small account, I was able to make a lot of that money back, especially as I got better in picking the calls and selling them at the right times, instead of being impatient and not waiting for strong reversals. If stock starts to move to the higher, sometimes I would get a little bit antsy and sell the calls a little too early, and then of course the stock would run up, and then I would be, I'd make the money, but if I had just waited, I would have taken in more profits. And so it's basically a game of patience moving forward. And so that's basically the point of this portfolio again. And then of course, looking at my dividends, as you can see, where my dividends, I'll be taking in 460 on my dividend account, working on that account. I'm going to be doing a lot more work at the hospital, doing uh, contracting, which is basically how I'm going to be working moving forward, because I can negotiate my salary based off of my experience. And so as I become more skilled in my craft, I'm able to take on harder positions that do, of course, pay better. And then overwhelmingly, I funnel all of that money basically into my accounts after I've paid my bills, and it's primarily for investing. And this is basically my goal that I had set back for 2020. And of course, we're moving forward, already halfway through 2021, moving into 2022 with the goal of 3/4 retirement by the time I'm 45. So basically, within the next 2.5 years, I'm looking to do a 3/4 retirement where I'll still be doing the dividend investing, still be working with selling premiums through the calls, and then of course have my growth, and then of course doing basically 2 contracts every year. And it's basically 3 months for the contract, so I would do 2 contracts at once, and that would net me in the area of around 50,000 to about 60,000 for 3 months of work. And of course, I would be working, between 6 and 7 days, putting in, between 67, maybe 80 hours for the week, but it would just be for that 3 month span, and then basically live out of the country for the rest of the duration and continue with what I'm doing moving forward. That's basically where my goals are. I can show you where my Robinhood is. I haven't finished updating it because a lot of these positions, I either buy, some of them I buy every single day. Actually, let's go dashboard. Let's go dashboard and Robinhood. So you can see in my Robinhood account, I currently have 5,600 invested, and I'm up 300 with a current annual income of $101. And again, this portfolio is not designed for income, but it does have some income sprinkled in. And you can see basically, I'm actually, am I still holding this? I forget. Again, I haven't finished updating it because I've moved a little bit, primarily for growth, but I do have a little bit of income paying stocks, like for example, JEPI, MPW, which is a REIT. Obviously, Intel pays a little bit of a dividend, but it's primarily there for the program of Chips for America, basically T, which I still hold in this account. And so this is basically what I'm doing for this account. But I've got like stocks like Apple, ChargePoint, Chewy, Peloton, Roblox, Redfin. So these are the stocks that I'm looking to make a little bit more gains in terms of growth moving forward. But that's basically going to be it. I'm going to leave it there. This is basically my update. Again, apologizing, but of course, circumstances are circumstances. So hopefully we'll see what's going to be going forward for the month of July. Hopefully we've got some good premiums and I'll be able to add to my account. But I'll check you out next time. Appreciate you watching. Of course, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will check you out next time. Take care and God bless.